Hello! Today we're going to make a simple tumbler turner. So we want to make this as simple as possible. If you have scrap pieces of wood that somewhat resemble these measurements, they'll work. I have two 8-inch pieces of 2x4. Also something I've used is like pallet wood before. I also have a 15-inch 1x6 piece, and you can definitely tell this one came from the scrap. It's not terribly level. This turner is probably not going to be perfectly level, but I will show you how to level your turner after the fact, which is the better way of doing it anyways. But we still want to make sure it is as close as possible. So we are going to, normally you can do this just using a drill. I happen to have a cheap Harbor Freight drill press that I got for another project, but now comes in handy. I have a 1-inch and 1 1/4 inch drill bit pieces. You'll notice that these ones don't have teeth, these little teeth part, all the way along. Make sure if you are doing this with a drill, that you get one that has teeth all the way along. It will be more expensive. Trust me, it is totally worth it. With these, you'll also need these pieces. This is what's going to actually attach it to the drill or drill press. So we just take, you see how it's got the drill piece on the bottom, and then it's got the part that attaches to the screwdriver on the top. And you can tell that there's the screw part there. So we're going to put that up through here, twist it around until you get it to go through like that. And then you're going to put the nut that comes with it on top and screw it nice and tight. I think with this one being a cheaper one, it does have a tendency of coming loose, so just keep an eye on that. If it starts wobbling around, just stop it, tighten it up. Be very careful though, these get hot, so you'll want a nice little cloth around you so that you can use that to help tighten it. So I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to use this little key piece to tighten it. Make sure it's nice and tight. And we're going to undo that because we used the wrong one. We're going to start with the 1-inch piece. And the reason that we start with the 1-inch piece is because we're actually going to use that piece inside the PVC pipe to attach the PVC pipe to the actual turner motor. So we have that piece on there. We're going to put it on, use the key, tighten it up. If you're doing this with a drill, you put it in here and you tighten this, or loosen it, tighten it this way. See how it goes smaller. All right, now we're going to start with one of our pieces, and we're going to take this and we're going to measure halfway across, which is about 1.75, and put a dot, and we want it to be about 1 inch down. You can see my dot right there. This is where we're going to center this piece here, so it will go up higher than that. That's totally fine. I am going to use some clamps to help attach this to the plate for the drill press. If you don't have anything to measure it as well, that's okay. Just do your best to get kind of that measurements, because we're actually going to use this one as a template for the second one. Put a second one on the back. All right, turn it on. You'll notice I'm going back and forth a lot. That's just because this is both underpowered and this is not a great drill bit. And so it will get stuck a whole bunch. Now you may have heard that slightly different sound, and you can now see that the wood is in that drill part. You may be able to see the smoke as well. It's very hot right now. So we can release this. And these clamps are just cheap ones that I got from Harbor Freight as well. All right. So you'll notice this is not big enough. We don't want it to be big enough because we want this piece to fit inside here. We're gonna release this from there. Take the nut off. You'll notice I'm using the cloth. It still feels quite warm even with this cloth, so just be very careful. That falls off. This piece, just gonna wiggle that through. All right, this piece is probably gonna be pretty stuck. Can't really get it off. Trick with this, attach it to the drill, and then don't use your hands. We're attaching it, so I loosened it up, got it in there, tightened it. See? Use a wrench. This is not, don't use a crescent wrench. This just happens to be what I have in hand because we're in the middle of a move right now. So you want to make sure that it's like you're undoing a screw. And just pull a little bit. Ta-da, it's out. All right, and now this piece will fit nicely in here. And with a little Gorilla Glue, it will be perfect. All right, so the next thing we'll do now that we have this small hole is we're going to make a bigger hole. So we're gonna take this off of there, remembering that it is still hot. We're gonna take our bigger piece, the 1 1/4 inch, put it over top again. This is hot as well, so just be very careful. You can always use another cloth if it's too hot for you, or just wait a little bit. Okay, so this is gonna go on here. Tighten it up. You just wanna kind of center it on the hole, and then we're gonna clamp it down again. It does not really matter if you end up a little low, a little to the side, a little to the top. Doesn't really matter too much because again, you're going to use this as a template for the second one. All right, I am through on this one, so we're going to release this. This one, see, nice hole. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put these together, we'll clamp them, and then we're going to put this through, just get a little teeny hole in the end, then we'll take the top off so that we're not potentially doing more damage or having this, it's just more of a pain in the butt. And then it should match up no problem. So you want these, you're just gonna put them on a surface where you can make sure that the bottom, don't worry about the top, if the top is slightly uneven, not a big deal. But you want the bottom to be perfectly even and the sides to be even. Okay, this plate's gonna have to come down. There's a little lever on the side. Now, you wanna make sure that this is gonna go down. You don't wanna make this hole bigger. So you're gonna go down first, hold it there, turn it off. Okay, you should now have a nice little hole without much else. See? Like that. So now I can use this just like I did with my Sharpie and make my other hole. You're using the bigger one this time. You only need to use the 1 inch once. Now if you see here, when I go all the way down, there's still a gap. That means this isn't gonna go all the way through. So we do wanna bring this up just a little bit more. But it's also got to be low enough to allow that through. sure that the part that's sticking down does go into the hole. Now, I use this. I hold this down a little bit while I'm clamping. Obviously, you won't need to do this if you are just using the drill bit, or the drill, sorry. Make sure it hasn't moved on yet, and away you go. There we go, and you now have pieces that work perfectly. You may find that if you twist them around, that they don't quite line up. These ones do too badly. But if that's the case, just make sure that you keep them like this and you know which ways it's gonna go onto the turner. All right, so for the next part, we are going to assemble this with this. Now, because I used an extra piece of wood, you'll see that there's a bit of a curve. So if you put it down, it's fairly stable this way, but if you put it the other way, it's not so stable. So we want to find out, make sure that we're using the more stable side to go down. So because of that, we are actually going to be drawing on this side. Now we're going to draw 4 dots to represent where we're putting the screws. We're going to do 3/4 of an inch down and 1.5 inch in for the first 2. And then we're going to use those lines down here to put a second set at the 6 inch from the top mark. So if we measure, find the 3/4, do 1.5, 1.5, make sure that it's at the 3/4, close enough. Now I'm going to use these dots to help me draw these lines, because again, it doesn't need to be perfect. If they end up a little bit further in or a little bit further out, it's not too big of a deal. So I'm going to use this down and draw my 6 and my other for my 6. Okay, so I now have 4 dots, 2 here and 2 here. Now, because I'm a bit of a weakling, I am actually going to use a clamp. Again, this one is just one I got at Harbor Freight. Get it close to help you hold it. There we go. So we have matched up this part here to the back, and we have done our best to center each side. If it's really important to you, you can use the tape measure to center it, but the big thing is to make sure that the dots are both over top of this. All right, now I'm going to use a drill bit to pre-drill my holes. It's important to use a drill bit that is smaller than your screw because you still want your screw to bite into the wood. This is just helping you. I am going to take this out, put my screw in. I am not going to put the screw all the way in. Just move this over a little bit and do the same again. All right, first one done. So for the second part, we're gonna do the same thing, but this time we're also gonna put our PVC between the two, and that just helps if you ended up with this being a little bit off or a little bit janky. This will help to make sure that this one is kind of the same way. So again, drill bit first. Then the screw. Again, make sure that it is lined up. you now have almost a turner. All right, now we are going to do the wiring. So I have a cord that has a switch on it, and it's got this blue and red wire. I also happen to have, and you can buy these off Amazon, they're called, I believe, lamp plugs, lamp switches, something like that. I also happen to have this that was just in my stuff. It's a cord that I no longer need. So I'm actually going to show you how to use this, if you happen to have one. So we're gonna start by snipping the end off. So we're just gonna slice through there. Be very, very careful. That's why I'm doing it on surface. So it unjackets them. You can pull a little bit and it'll keep slicing through. When you have enough, just snip off the extra white. Okay. Now, this right here is a fancy cutter. If you don't have one of these, you can just really gently use some snips around the side. And you end up with that going like that. So I now have something that looks very similar to the one that I purchased. Free a little bit more space from that. There we go. I have 2 wires. I am using these wonderful little heat shrink things. They're fabulous. If not, you can totally use electrical tape and the little connector twisty ends that you use when you do like lamps and stuff. These 2, and I'm going to put them over the end. Another one over the end. Bigger one on this side to go over that side, like that. These you use your heat gun or a hair dryer after to shrink them up real nice and tight. So we're gonna just put these together. See? So one from the turner motor and one from cord end, and we're just gonna twist, 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 twist. And the other one, put it together, twist, twist, twist. Now before we go any further, we're going to want to test and make sure this actually works. Be very careful, make sure these are nice and far apart, or you could cause a fire. So if you're unsure, don't do this part. Get somebody else to do it. So we're just going to plug this in, make sure that it turns on. Obviously, if you have a switch, you'll have to switch it back on. So now to finish this off, I'm going to twist that. I'm going to slide this over so that it is centered all the way down there. I'm going to do the same with the other little one, like so. Use my heat gun. I am keeping the other black one that I'm going to put over top of both of those out of the way so that it doesn't shrink down. There you are. It is nice and tight. and then just as an extra measure. Now this is warm. If you try and put that one final layer over top, it's gonna start shrinking as you heat. So you wanna let this cool. All right, we've let this cool. So we're gonna slide this over top. Now it's okay if some of the black sticks out, but make sure that it's over top of the part that you had cut, just for strength's sake. And there you have it. You now have one connected turner. So now we're gonna put this onto here. The exciting part, the part that actually makes it into a turner. So that for this part, I am going to use a 3.5-inch piece of PVC. So I have my PVC. Measure. Put a line. Now have a line on there. This is a PVC cutter. It's one I just got at Harbor Freight. And you're just going to ratchet it down. There you go. We have our 3.5-inch piece. We have one connector piece. And we have our piece of wood stopper thing, maybe. Yes, right here from before. So remember, this is the smaller piece. The bigger piece can just get thrown out. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to put some of our Gorilla Glue, which it expands, helps keep everything tight, into the PVC, and then we're gonna put our stopper in. Just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. I did miss a spot. Now we're gonna put this all the way in. Should go in relatively easy till the end. You wanna have it sitting flush. Okay. This part here you can clean off a little bit. All right, a little cleaner that way. Okay, so this end is what you're going to be putting onto this. You're gonna put a little Gorilla Glue on here and then push it in. But before we do that, all right, I'm going to use a little bit of felt inside these holes, and that just helps prevent any friction from happening, and it keeps your turner running smoother. So you're gonna do about a 3.5-inch piece. It does not have to be the depth of this, but if you want it to be, then it's about 1.5 inches. I'm running low on felt, so I'm not gonna do 1.5 inches. I'm gonna do probably about 1 inch. All right, so I have my strip of felt. I'm gonna use some crazy glue, super glue. This is stuff I just got at Harbor Freight as well. Just gonna put a little driblet, just very similar to what I just did with the Gorilla Glue. Careful not to get it on your skin, or you will glue your fingers together, which is unpleasant. That goes in. There we go. One done. If there's a spot that seems like it's sticking up, you can totally just put another little droplet, just tap it down. Other side. I'm going to just curl that up smaller so there's some overlap, just makes it a little easier to put it in. Find your center and then just squish it around. There you go. So we're gonna go back to, not that piece, this piece, and we're gonna take our connector. We are going to put some glue around in the connector, some Gorilla Glue. On this one, you do want to be a little bit more judicious about your glue because if it goes over the connector in the middle part, you don't want it on this side, even after it dries. Put a little over there. We're going to slide the piece, keep that piece that's got the wood in it on the back, slide it in, take your connector over here, and push it all the way in. Okay, you can see that there is some glue that's pooled up. All right, so I'm just gonna take a paper towel and just wipe in the inside until it's dry. Next, we're gonna wanna have 2 little tiny screws. These are 1/2 inch with the Phillips head on top ready. We're gonna put a little bit of glue in this hole. You do want to be careful with this because you do not want to get glue on this part, just on the actual shaft. So we're gonna push this in. This is a little bit hard, just wiggle back and forth till it's all the way in, like that. And now we're gonna attach the motor. So I'm going to attach a little bit of extra PVC just gently to the connector, just to keep it straight. And that will help me with my alignment of the back part here. So I'm gonna take a 1/2 inch screw. Doesn't matter if you use the top or the bottom one. One done, 2 done. So that it doesn't get glued. You now have a turner. It just needs to dry. The Gorilla Glue will be foamed up and fairly dry in about 6 hours, but I would suggest leaving it overnight. And I believe it's fully cured in 3 days.